Okay, so I made this video to try to better explain what is going on in this project, as some of you seem to be a little bit confused. Big picture, you are identifying student needs and trying to plan your instruction from it, right? And so instead of planning what we're going to do first, we've identified their deficits and we're going to create an assessment. It's going to be our pre and our post. So now, once we create the assessment, we can plan with the end in mind. We know the objectives we're going to be teaching. We know how they're going to be assessed. So now we can be more effective in our planning. So you've found this information on your student. So this is my student, like I went over yesterday. And really lots of information, but what he likes and his deficits are going to be important, and I'm going to want to include them in the context for learning section. This is what you have due on Sunday. You don't have to turn in all the information you got on that student. Instead, you're going to pick out what's really important and what you're going to use in your assessment. I'm going to use that he likes science. I'm going to use that he needs to infer, right? Making inferences. Because I'm going to use those, and as well as staying focused, as my learning targets. It's 5 points. All you have to do is turn in this part right here. That's your focus student assignment. It's due on Sunday. If you don't have a focus student, it's going to be an option at the end of this video to show you what you can do instead. Now what? You've written up your student. You know what the deficits are. Now, based on their needs, you are going to identify 2 learning targets. One of them is going to be academic. Yes, even if your student does not have an IEP specific goal that's academic, their deficit is impacting them in some way, or they wouldn't have an IEP. Their deficit is impacting their IEP identification, is impacting their learning in some way, or they wouldn't have an IEP. So we can still identify a target area, an academic target area. And we're going to have 3 objectives from there. So maybe in the second learning target, it can be behavioral, it can be a communication, it can be a transition skill. So those are your 2 things. So you've got your learning target here, and then you're going to break that down into 3 objectives. And then for each objective, you're going to have 3 test questions each, and that's going to be your teacher-made test. And so when you have these questions for our pre-test, we can analyze to see which ones they got wrong, look at the question types, and then in our lessons and our formative assessments, we're trying to give the student the skill they need to answer those questions correctly. So then after our 3 mini lessons and our assessments, we give the test again to see if they improved. So I'm going to show you what I did. I went over this yesterday and how I kind of thought about my student. So let's look at that again. So this is the little graphic organizer that I filled out first before I started identifying my test questions. So comprehension is the IEP goal. We want to improve comprehension. It's stated in the IEP that he struggles with inferring. Okay? So that's going to be my learning target. I'm going to focus on inferring for my little mini unit. And then I broke down into 3 objectives. I'm going to focus on inferring the setting and genre, and inferring character feelings, and inferring theme and author's purpose. My second learning target is going to be on staying focused and I'm going to use a checklist to check the behavior. Very simple, something I can do quickly while also teaching. And so I'm going to show you my teacher-made test that I made. And this just kind of breaks it down so that you can see I have 3 questions over inferring the genre and setting. I have 4 questions on inferring character feelings. And then I have 3 questions on inferring the theme and author's purpose. I used a variety of question types to demonstrate. And so here's my quiz. There might be issues here. It's okay because it's my draft. And we're going to look at it next week in class. And you're going to be able to pick it apart and kind of help me improve it, right? Based on what we've read in the chapter and the PowerPoints and the information that we've read about good questions. Got my true-false questions. I've got my multiple choice questions, which I have the directions. I've got my matching. I've got my fill in the blank. And then I've got my short answer. So I want to show you where I got these from because I did steal a little bit. So I came to commonlit.org and you get free subscription with your .edu email. And so I found this passage on grade level, and it's science fiction. It has some science elements in it that I felt like could keep my students' attention. So I'm being purposeful with using their strengths in this assignment. And I read it. I thought it was engaging. I felt like I could create some, pretty good lessons from it. So then I was like, let me check out the questions. So then I used the questions that I liked and that fit with my objectives. I also rewrote some of the questions. So you can see here, this one I rewrote to make it a better test question. This also had objectives that I wasn't measuring. So, I picked and pulled. And I read the passage and kind of made good teacher decisions about where I would like to ask questions and where I felt like a student that struggles with inferring, where I would normally stop and ask guiding questions. And so that's how I ended up creating my teacher-made test. I'm going to bring that in on Thursday, just like I'm asking you to do. And we're going to go over it. For those of you that don't have a student, it's okay. It's not ideal, but it's okay. There is an assignment called Alternate Focus Student Case Studies. And here I explain what these links are and how you can use them. So you can click on them for the ones that have a link and ask for a password. For my Jayhawks is the password. And these are from the University of Kansas. Dr. Katie Austin helped create these, and we've been given permission to use these. So yes, you don't know Helena, but here you have a ton of information that you can use to write a character, a focus student mini narrative. And then you can use Helena to draft a teacher-made test. But who's going to take it? Because Helena's not real. I can't think of a better way to do this, but I can be Helena, or I can be your student and take the quiz like that student, or maybe a peer can. And we can make intentional mistakes so that you can still analyze the data. It's not ideal. Working with real students is always easier. However, I don't want anybody to get behind, and so we are problem solvers, and this is the best solution I could come up with. Okay, so your focus student, you're going to turn it in through Canvas. You can upload it here. It's 5 points. Don't stress too much. Do the best that you can. This is practice, right? Better to practice in this class for 5 points than on a high stakes evaluation like EdTPA. Okay, what about the teacher interview? Some of you are confused about that, and rightfully so, because you all are having very different experiences out in the field. So let's review what the big picture was. The purpose of this assignment was to allow you an opportunity to hit the ground running with your teacher and say, hey, I'm in an assessment class. How do you use assessment? Just to start off learning everything you can. How do you progress monitor? What data do you use? Do you have data talks? How do you communicate data with Jeanette? How do you communicate data with parents, with students? How often do you take data? What's your a master plan for keeping up with all of these IEP goals and data for all of these students? I really wanted you to gather that information from your teachers and then come back as a group, which was supposed to happen last night. And so we learn from each other, because some people are blessed to be in the most amazing placement ever. Some people might not have a great teacher that has great data tools. So my hope was we would learn from each other. We would sit around. What'd your teacher say? Oh, really? Ooh, I got some great ideas. Mine showed me this. Mine showed me this. Some of you learned some really not so great things, right? But the goal was to meet with your group, synthesize that information. So I had some options to help you get started talking about the group discussions. And they were supposed to take major themes. I couldn't tell you what those themes were because I didn't interview your teachers. This was also kind of an assessment to see how well you would do at analyzing qualitative data, right? What are the major things? What are the major takeaways? And then putting that information onto a nice, clean handout, with the overall goal being we as a class learn how your different teachers are using data, how the district that you are in is using data, and kind of get a good picture of the good, the bad, and the ugly of assessment in schools. You are then going to synthesize that information into a nice, neat little handout. You are going to put down the major takeaways. I didn't give you headings because I didn't know what the takeaways were. You get to choose those. There's no right and wrong answer here. So ideally, that is what happened last night. But what if I couldn't interview a teacher? My teacher didn't have a lot to say. My teacher had some inappropriate things to say. Do I put that on my sheet? Or not everybody in your group was able to talk to your teachers. So you have options. If you want to go ahead and take this off of your plate and you did an interview but your group didn't, then you can go ahead and turn in a handout and you're done. For those of you that didn't have an interview and nobody else in your group did, then we're going to have to push it back. And if you want me to, I can answer your questions and I can get some data from other people and we can send you those and you can analyze that if you feel like you're not going to get a lot of information from your teacher. On Canvas, this changed a little bit because I took off the group assessment. At first, I was going to have a group assessment in there so that you could kind of hold your peers accountable for doing the work and not one person getting it all done. So I removed that portion. So you are 100% perfectly fine if you just turn in your handout. Turn in the summary. That's it. That's the assignment. You completely have the option of pushing back this assignment. I just don't want this to pile up and be one more thing that you have to do. Okay? Please Reach out if you have any questions. I am here. I'm available. If you're not learning, that's a reflection of me, and I want to make sure that I can help. Okay? Peace out. Peace out? Who says peace out? I don't know. Bye!